Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today's guest is Lila Volkas, a non-alcoholic beverage educator, herbal enthusiast, and facilitator who helps people reimagine what happy hour can look like. I was immediately intrigued by her thoughtful approach to mindful drinking and how she blends non-alc mixology with holistic wellness in a way that feels grounded, inclusive, and genuinely fun. Her journey into this work began with her own health transformation, eventually leading to her creating these engaging experiences that support both individuals and teams in connecting so much more intentionally. And we are going to be exploring that personal journey that led her here and the insights that she's gathered along the way. I am so excited to dive right into it. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Lila.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Yay. So let's just dive right in and start from the beginning. Can you walk us through the beginning of your mindful drinking journey? Like, what was happening in your life that made you start reconsidering your relationship?
Yeah. In about 2015, 2016, I was really struggling with my health. I had noticed that I had some different issues popping up, but then they all just kind of tipped over the edge, and I was having really intense chronic rashes and digestive and stomach pain, and I just was desperate for a solution to feel better. So that kind of dove me into my healing journey, which is definitely healing is non-linear, so it continues. But I went in search of conventional medicine, holistic medicine to find, just basically homeostasis to feel well. And so in that journey, I did a lot of experimenting, a lot of different healing diets. And one of the, first things that I started to cut out were coffee, alcohol, gluten, eggs, nuts, etc. And so in my, journey since then, I have very fortunately, after many years of trying different things, found my homeostasis, and alcohol just never made it back into my diet. And I feel just more oriented after going through a pretty intense, chronic illness challenge that I want to orient towards feeling good no matter what. So that's how I kind of orient my eating and my beverage choices.
Ooh, I love how there are so many different ways that people can arrive into this moment, whether it's something, more health related, more of a moment in time, or a diagnosis, or just like an event, right? Like there's so many different reasons, but regardless of the reason that you're here, it brought you down this wonderful path of knowledge. I feel like there's a rabbit hole that a lot of people go down in non-alc. And you mentioned that you found a more holistic nutrition approach, right? So tell us a little bit more about, when you first started this journey, were you just drinking like, sodas and waters? How did it evolve into beautiful mocktail, like herbal mixology?
Yeah. So I would say I've always been health conscious, and that first expressed itself through physical activity. I was a spin teacher as one of my first jobs in college. And so I loved being in my body. I loved, feeling like I was doing things to help myself feel well. And so prior to, you know, kind of having my chronic illness flare up, I think I really was thinking about things like calories in, calories out, things in a very simplistic, like one-to-one mindset. When I, went through my healing process, I was like, oh, wow, just because I move some of these knobs doesn't mean that I get the result that I expect. It's a little more interconnected web than kind of 1 plus 1 equals 2. So I, was already feeling like, Alcohol just isn't for me. I want to wake up early and feel great for my spin classes, but I think there was a really big shift with my kind of flair in my, health struggles. So from that, I was really on the search to find fun, delicious, and healthful non-alcoholic beverage options. And so I got into it first through the realm of herbs. I started working at an herb store where they hired me. Amazingly, I had zero herbal knowledge, but they hired me, I think, because they liked me. I love talking to people. I love educating people about different things. So through working at this herb store and through my holistic nutrition training, I learned a ton about functional ingredients and herbs and different foods. And I started to kind of put those things together with my desire to have something celebratory, fun, elevated as a non-alcoholic beverage.
I love that you started with your passion and the knowledge just came along the way. Like you weren't afraid to start at a job, even though you didn't know as much as you knew after. I think that's super cool on multiple levels. And especially, I think that hits home for a lot of people. I mean, I know for a fact that we have some clients who are business owners who own, whether it's bars, bottle shops, or their own coaching firms, and they even say like, hey, look, Marina, I can do this, this, and that, but at the end of the day, I am an RTD person, or I don't know what I would want for me. I can help other people all day, but that journey to start, like even people who are in this industry, it can be overwhelming because there's so many choices, so many tinctures and ingredients and flavor profiles and so many, like, how do you know what's what and what's enough, right? So I know for me, I started with tea and I would just like mix different teas and like m milks and sugars. And then I graduated to tinctures. I'm curious for you, what was the like least, like the path of least resistance? Like, what did you just dive in with a whole bunch of like brewing things, or tell us what your early mocktails looked like?
Yeah. So I would say my early mocktails I don't know, looked more like what I call elixirs. So I guess my definition of what an elixir is that it is very oriented towards function. So a functional beverage that has some sort of wellness or energetic properties. And then getting those mixology skills, the shaking, the stirring, what to do with different things, how to measure in ounces, came later. So I started with very herb forward drinks, and I was immersed in the world of herbs, working at this really fun herb store where we sold all different kinds of like healing and also party alternative herbs, like a lot that are used in non-alcoholic products today, like kava and kana. And so I learned how to kind of educate people around those things. And I was already really into educating people about food. I started teaching food and beverage related workshops in 2013 with a kombucha brewing class, one of hundreds and hundreds eventually, at my student food co-op when I was in college. And so that was my very first kind of food workshop, and I expanded from there into now I have about 30 plus different workshops related to food, beverages, wellness that I teach.
Oh, that's super sweet. I was literally just thinking, I'm like, Bing, you are, like you mentioned, you got this job because you naturally connect with people. You naturally love to teach. And even in your stories, it's easy to engage and like feel like I'm learning something along the way. So, you mentioned that you were doing this in college. So was that when you were like, man, like I really want to keep teaching people? Or was the workshop model and the teaching people, was that something that you had to go through a little bit more life experience first to realize like that was what you wanted to do?
I think I've always loved teaching. My very, very first job at 14 and a half, as early as you can work in California at the time, was as a gymnastics instructor for little kids. And so I loved the group energy. I loved empowering people to like walk away with a new skill. And I started to apply that to first fitness with my spin classes, and then to food with my kombucha classes. And so I think I've always had that love of teaching embedded in my cells. It's really funny. I feel very much a combination of my parents with their businesses and their interests. My dad is a drama therapist, and he teaches workshops mostly for his work. And my mom is a food writer and sign language interpreter, but her love of food, and we really connected around creating food together. So I kind of feel like putting those two things together equals, of course I'm my own person, but I very much feel inspired by my parents and them running their own businesses as I was growing up too.
Yeah, that's quite the tapestry to really help you see this like holistic experience of, you know, the whole point, the whole reason we drink these drinks, it's usually not alone. It's usually in a setting that brings us together, that like connects us. So I think that's sweet that your foundation really just is so aligned with your purpose and where you're going. And, so you had this personal passion for teaching, and then you find all of these pun intended ingredients along the
Mhm.
way. But it sounds like you've taught to a lot of different people. You've got your gymnasts, your spin people, your people in all the different types of mocktail workshops. So tell us a little bit more about the differences between, the public audiences, corporate teams. Like, how does your approach shift based on who you're teaching and what environment you're in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as my teaching and side business turned into a full-time business, I was first teaching public workshops on the side, basically, to my other jobs and being a student. And since 2013 all the way to 2019, when I went full time into my current business, which focuses on corporate team building. So I would say I still teach public workshops in different iterations, and I would say the public workshop attendees are there, and they for, they really want to be there. They paid their own money to be there, unless someone's, spouse dragged them to a mocktail or kombucha workshop against their will. But with my corporate attendees, it's a really interesting and unique audience, because a lot of them wouldn't necessarily choose a mocktail workshop for themselves, but their HR manager chose it as this quarter's activity. And here we are, 20 of us all on Zoom. We're about to make my recipes. And I have a lot of people who are initially pretty skeptical, or even resistant, or even like throw in a little bit of jabs and punches in the chat as I start, where I, start to introduce the concept of non-alcoholic cocktails for the first time for a lot of people in my corporate audience. But that has turned out to be actually this very sacred, special role that I get to be in, because I feel that I am able to bring this very accessible, friendly, non-judgmental kind of container to have people explore elixirs, fermentation, non-alcoholic cocktails. And I often see a change of, people's perspective initially, especially, we have some folks who are well aware of adaptogens, and I ask people what their favorite drink is, and they hold up an RTD, and I'm like, I love that one. I have it in my kitchen. And then there are other people I ask their favorite drink, and they're like whiskey straight up. And they're like, definitely set in that alcohol is, the way to go. And after they leave, I often see maybe some surprised faces as we taste the drinks. And when I tell people, I ask a question at the end, what are you taking away? I get a lot of answers that they were surprised at how good these were, that this exists, that this is a concept, or that some of these different ingredients exist. So that deeply satisfies me in my corporate audience.
This is super fun for me to hear stories about that like intersection between, we all love to connect with people who understand us. It's comfortable, it's simple, it like fills our cup, right? But when we have those like out of nowhere, like who the do you think you are? Like you come in and you think we're gonna have a good time, and then by the time they leave, they haven't like that's the magic that like that makes such a big difference because right because then that person tells their friend they think it's a funny little story but then that maybe allows someone to open up and be like man but tell me what that recipe was though bruh because like I might need it. I think that's so cool because oftentimes wellness feels like this exclusive or expensive thing, right? Like people have these preconceived notions of it. And I feel like, when you have so many tools in your toolkit like you do, it's easier to see like, oh no, like you can make a cool mocktail out of stuff that you find in your yard, right? Like there's but other people may not be able to see that magic so clearly. So what are some of the ways that you make wellness feel more like hands-on and inclusive instead of that like exclusive, expensive vibe?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I really like to have a balance of using some specialty ingredients, like non-alcoholic products, and then I really like to show people how they can use ingredients from their kitchen to add complexity, to add health benefits in really, really simple ways. So a couple examples are making a spiced rim for your non-alcoholic margarita using salt with smoked paprika. So layering flavors using spices that you probably already have in your cabinet, as well as using all parts of your ingredients. For example, using the peel of your citrus to add that extra lime flavor, to get bitterness, to add complexity. And that is something that you're already using lime juice in your drink, but using the peel can really help add those extra elements that can really take your mocktail up several levels. And I'll say I want everybody to know about my secret, not so secret, favorite mocktail ingredient that's food based, which is apple cider vinegar. Half a teaspoon or a full teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, like I think adds just a tiny bit of funk, a little bit of bite, and I think it really, really can make a huge difference in allowing those flavors to come together. And then, of course, we have those benefits from the acetic acid of apple cider vinegar. It's fermented, and a lot of people are surprised by using apple cider vinegar. I'd say it's one of the number one takeaways that people have is I had no idea I could use apple cider vinegar in a mocktail and it would taste good.
Yeah, that's huge. That's something that, again, it's so accessible. It's something that so many of us forget we even have sometimes in our cabinets, including the other spices you mentioned as well. And going on that, many people associate fun and celebration with alcohol, and we're already talking about how we can up level the drink itself. But in general, how would you challenge that idea that you can only have fun with, a cocktail that has alcohol in it, beyond just the flavor profile, but, the intention in the drink and the experience that you're providing with that drink.
Yeah, I really love talking about the different qualities of the ingredients that we're using, including adaptogens to help you adapt to stress and help you feel more present, to in some of my elixirs, I do we make a chocolate-based elixir. So
Mm.
drinking chocolate, and I talk about how I think that chocolate makes an excellent party beverage, and I usually get some weird looks, but then I explain about how chocolate has some energizing qualities from not only the caffeine but the theobromine as this like cardiovascular stimulant being much more gentle than caffeine, which also makes it a great alternative to coffee, and so helps give you a little pep without needing to drink some, Red Bull and vodka, and you can have a fun evening or a fun socializing time without the hangover and with actually nourishing yourself with those intentional ingredients. So I definitely do a lot of ingredient education. I'm often, introducing people to 5 or more different herbs that they've never heard of, and I make it really really friendly. So I explain things from the very beginning and give analogies to help people understand them. And so I'm often again encountering people who have never encountered many of these ingredients before. And it's super special to see them feel inspired, see them looking things up, posting things in the chat, being like, "Oh, look at this tea," or look at this product that has ashwagandha in it. Like, I'm totally going to integrate this more into my life." So that feels really exciting for me.
While you were speaking, it was wild. It like changed the way I was experiencing time for a second. Like I was like so many people when I ask this kind of question too, they'll be like, "Yeah, so, let's talk about the event." And they'll talk about all the things that are happening around the beverage, right? But you just reminded me of like, those Dove chocolate commercials when like
Hmm.
all of a sudden things get slow and like there's like silk blowing super slow in the breeze and you're
Oh
just
my
like
gosh, yeah.
you're so present with the moment. It's just like no, like the fun is the ingredient. Like I felt like I was in a pool of chocolate just thinking about it because it's like you're like really focusing in on the ingredients. It's such it brings you into the present moment instead of trying to eject you out of whatever discomfort you're numbing from the alcohol, right? Instead, we're connecting over this experience that we're all experiencing together. Like my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. We were talking about how we grew up in both in towns that had churches that had like the bells that would ring on the hour. So
Hmm.
it was something that like you didn't need a watch because you always knew what time it was, even if you didn't know
Mm.
why. And it was a shared collective experience that all of us heard those bells. All of us would be drawn to the moment together. But now in society, there's like not always that moment. And yeah, you could argue that it's like, oh, in a cheers, you have that little moment where we all come together. But do you really, if the thing that you're experiencing isn't actually bringing you as together as you initially thought? So I really admire and respect your answer of being like, nah, brah, like lean into those ingredients because it really is like if you're focused on being in your body while you're drinking some of these super cool elixirs, all these different options out there, like you really can understand that there's more than just an on and off switch, right? Like there's all these different knobs and levers that you can kind of play with in your body to like have all these fun experiences. So I appreciate the way that you explain these things, and I'm sure that there are other people in your workshops that feel similarly.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your reflections on them. I feel very seen and like you understand what I'm really, what I'm really bringing through in my offerings.
Yeah, there's so many different ways that we can connect with people. And sometimes I feel like we get so stuck in our heads, like, oh, well, I can't talk to my parents without a glass of wine because they drive me up a wall. Okay, well, maybe they drive you up a wall because let's talk about something else. Let's find something else. We can all agree that chocolate tastes good, right? So
Right. Let's
finding
try
other ways.
chocolate. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I do like to explain to people and get their expectations kind of prepared of like when I talk about that this brings something that's relaxing or uplifting or, mood supportive, we're talking really gentle and subtle. We're used to things that kind of knock us over the head, like coffee and alcohol, but I really like to have people tune in to some of the more subtle qualities of some of these ingredients in elixirs and mocktails.
Yeah. Imagine how it's like you have the ability to see more colors if you calm down long enough to be able to like enjoy subtlety. And it's not even that these things taste subtle. I mean, I know
Yeah,
I
definitely not.
recently saw that like okay, so back when I was in college working at the tea shop, so again, I didn't care about anything in this category, to be frank. Like I just worked it like it was just my college job and I would still go like drink a bunch of alcohol after work. So there I didn't appreciate a lot of the ingredients at the time, but there was this one tea that I'm just seeing come up all the time now, and it just cracks me up. Lapsang Souchong. It
Hmm.
has the most intense, pungent like interesting flavor of all time. As a college kid, I was like, "Oh, what is this? This is it doesn't do what I couldn't even focus, right? To the point where I had no idea. Nowadays, right, it's an ingredient that I can respect and admire and play with and see. But when it's like the same ingredient a decade, like, more than a decade later, it can mean something incredibly different too. So like I'm curious for you, were there any like herbs or ingredients that you, I don't know, maybe had preconceived notions of or didn't care about much of in the beginning that now is like one of those like, oh, I didn't really realize how much I loved one of these underdog ingredients. Like, is there any of those for you in your library?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like what I reflect on is that I've been experimenting and trying these things for longer than most who are just starting to experiment with kava or adaptogens or nootropics because with my experience in the herb store that I started in 2017, I was, fresh, new to a lot of these herbs and started experimenting pretty early on. So it's been really interesting to see initially things that were really niche now becoming a big part of non-alcoholic products and spirits and RTDs and just the fabric of the non-alc space from things that are alternatively intoxicating like kava and kana and then things that are also promoting health support with adaptogens and L-theanine and I've just been like thinking and experimenting with these things for a long time so it feels like really kind of full circle of like finally people are seeing how powerful and awesome and delicious these things are. And they've been used for thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Ayurvedic medicine. And I think we have a lot to learn from ancient tradition, and we're kind of how we're doing it is we're weaving it back into impeccably branded, beautiful, cool, Instagram worthy beverages. But these ingredients and herbs and foods have been used for so long. So just that's something that comes to mind when you ask that.
Oh my gosh, I feel you so hard on this. I remember last year I made a post on LinkedIn. I mean, okay, I was trying to be inflammatory, so just
Those are
disclaimer.
those are the ones that get the most responses. So I don't blame
It's
you.
true. So I was kind of being a little pushy and I was like, dude, I'm so sick of seeing the same functional ingredients over and over again and or barely functional and
Hmm.
yet brands leading with that as their number one selling point when
Right.
I'm like I can literally list hundreds of different herbs that you can use when it comes to more interesting flavor profiles or I don't know more holistic like actual health benefits even if the ingredients don't sound as sexy just because people haven't talked about them as much, right?
Right.
And then so I posted this and honestly just thinking I was letting off some steam. And then I won't name any names, but I had someone who has made brands that are like famous
Hmm.
internationally. And he was like, I only know of like 8 or 10. Like I only know of like a dozen. And I was like, how, what? Like it shocked me. I was shook, especially because um yeah, just the whole context of that time, I was like, how is this possible? How? So I started to look at all the other products that were available on the market and like what was specifically launching at the time. And it was crazy because it was all the same functions. Now, this, again, this was last year. This year, we're finally starting to see a little bit more interesting things.
Hmm.
You know, I saw that lap saying Souchong recently, and
Hmm.
that's what really emotionally got me.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, this is cool. But point of this is, you know, just like you said, none of these ingredients are new. Earth
Yeah.
doesn't just like invent new plants. Like these are all they've been here, and it's just that the American system specifically hasn't done all of the, FDA regulations with many of these herbs because for the longest time, herbs were like, well, at least in the 1900s, I should say, after Big Pharma came in, right? It's just like, oh, herbs, these are just a bunch of hippies eating grass in the yard, right? Like
Right.
it wasn't advertised and in the same way. And for so long, a lot of people were looked down on for it, for this kind of more holistic approach. But now we're in this super special era where like we're kind of like herbalists are the cool kids on the block, which never used to
Right.
be the right. They used to be burned at the stake and called witches.
Hmm.
So, I can think of a lot of cool things that your work does for so many people already, but I'm curious from your perspective, what kind of ripple effect are you hoping that your work specifically creates in the world?
Yeah. I really hope, my intention behind honestly all of my workshops is to plant seeds and empower people to one, make things themselves that maybe they would normally buy at the store, even if it's just one time, just to feel that empowerment and to feel like, hey, I made this mocktail and it actually wasn't that hard, or I can make kombucha now and I have spent hundreds of dollars every month buying it from the store. So I think empowering people to DIY it is one thing that I really care about. I also really want to educate people and again plant those seeds of expanding their beverage repertoire. I'm not trying, like, if people drink alcohol, I'm not trying to say that you should remove it. I just want to add more fun, delicious, healthful, exciting alternatives to your tool belt so that you have more to draw on than like, oh, I want to relax. I'll have a glass of wine. What if you had a beautiful like Damiana and Nervine tonic? That sounds great. You could relax with that too. So, planting seeds and empowering people to make things themselves are really things that I infuse into my workshops.
Oh, I also loved how many like herbalism mixology puns were in what you said. That was perfect.
Yeah,
I want that on an embroidered quilt and put on my
excellent.
wall.
Send me a picture.
Yes. Now, all of this being said, because this is beautiful, and I really feel that in a lot of the things that you do. And, like we mentioned, it can be kind of hard to stay inspired or aligned sometimes because we are operating in a world that does misunderstand whether it's what we're selling or just some of the ingredients or, maybe it's some of the methods. So, all of that being said, while you're operating in this space that's still evolving and can it sometimes be misunderstood, how do you stay inspired? How do you stay aligned even when people may misunderstand what's going on?
Yeah, I think I really feel this I don't know. It feels like creativity through my business, through food, through beverages, through herbs, like it's kind of part of my like, I don't know, my life force. There's this like urgent, creative energy that I have previously in different parts of my life expressed through making art. And now my art is, running my business, which has its pros and cons. I feel so passionate. I pour so much of myself into my workshops and the recipes and what I create, and it feels so personal. So I think part of evolving and you know and facing the skepticism or the pushback or that people don't like it is just to feel my own energy and have those energetic boundaries of like that's really not about me if people don't like the mocktail that I make, and I really try my 100% best to not take it personally because some people are just not going to like it. Drinking chocolate, not for everybody. Not everybody wants to have a non-alcoholic cocktail. So I try and give suggestions of if you were, to spike this mocktail, what would I recommend? I really want everybody to feel included, uh, including the people who drink alcohol, because this experience may plant a seed for new ingredients, for trying different teas. Maybe they don't, make the same recipe that we made in the session, but that something even slight shifts inside and their worldview is expanded a little bit.
Yay. Yeah, I love that. It's all just one step at a time. And what we always say to our internal clients too, it's like sales in general, because everybody's selling something. Even if you don't have a business, if you're having a conversation with someone, you're trying to sell your idea to them. Or if you're not selling, you are being sold to because someone is selling their idea to you, right? And so oftentimes people mistake the rejection of whatever the offer is as like, yeah, this personal thing, when in reality it's like there are billions of people and all you're doing is sorting through to figure out what solutions you have for what people's problems or what their pain points. And I just feel like you have a really positive mindset for this. And I'd love to help finish like building a bridge for some of those out there who might maybe they're listening, they're curious about mindful drinking, but they feel intimidated or unsure of where to start. What would be your best piece of advice for those first few steps? Where do people start? How can you help them?
Yeah. So I would say if people are wanting to explore mindful drinking, starting with easy options, I recommend like trying a ready to drink or taking a class or something to help have a good entry point that's not make some crazy elaborate recipe where there's all these ingredients that you don't know. Starting with things that help, like you said, kind of bridge things that you do know, like, delicious things that can come in a can or using ingredients that you're familiar with and then expanding from there. And I have a number of different ways that we can explore that together if people are interested.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Lila. I want to make sure that people are connected with you should they want to dive deeper and learn more. So, of course, if you'd like to learn more about Lila's classes and offerings, you can go ahead and take a look at the description of this episode and you will see her link there. But Lila, is there any last thing you would like to tell the audience about not only getting connected with you, but really getting started on this journey?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that we can stay connected. You can follow me and check out my website. I also have a new project that's called the Mocktail School, which is an excellent way if you're just getting into non-alcoholic cocktails and you want to go deep, whether you are in the non-alc industry, would like to be in the non-alc industry, or just want to get nerdy about mocktails. We're offering various events and courses and through there. So you can check out the Mocktail School, and then I also offer virtual and in-person non-alcoholic mixology events in person here in the Bay Area where I live, and virtually anywhere in the world. And then if you just want to get started, I'd say, you don't need to make it perfect. Just try and don't get too caught up if you make something and it doesn't taste right. Keep iterating because it is all practice. I did not just immediately start making delicious tasting drinks that were exactly what I envisioned. It took a lot of practice and learning the ingredients and learning the skills to then start to more consistently make things that I was really enjoying.
It's true. Never give up. Just keep
Just keep
practicing.
going. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today, Lila. I appreciate you so much.
It has been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And to those of you who are listening, of course, again, go ahead and check the episode description for more details and resources. But as always, if anything else comes to mind, please send an email, hello@marinamars.com. We can continue to have this conversation, whether it's for myself or for Lila. We can absolutely make sure that all of these questions, comments all get passed along and answered, whether that's in a podcast, in a one-on-one, whatever it is that you need, we got you. So as always, if you need anything, just let us know.